Hold on a second. Did you break this chair that you're sitting in?
No, not that chair. This chair. The chair
you
that
broke
I'm sitting
two
in right
office chairs this week.
No, I didn't break two office chairs this week. Maia's chair was already broken.
Yeah, but
I
you
just
sat in it and you broke two
and I fell
office
over.
chairs.
And then I told her that I'd get her a new one, and she said no.
You know, Clarissa fell out of the broken chair that you broke earlier this week and told me she was suing
break it.
me.
Maia broke it.
And then Clarissa re-broke it.
She's suing you.
This is the reason that if you should form an LLC to shield yourself from liability.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Lawyers on the Rocks.
He is Kurt Nachman, the guy that breaks two fucking office chairs in 1 week.
Jeremy Eldridge is the guy that can't put together any office chairs anyway because he's got two left thumbs.
It's good to be the king.
Together.
It's good to be the king.
And Adam Crandall is an immigration lawyer again. Welcome
back.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode. We are sampling Tommy's Tea, which has booze in it. However, we are joined by Tom Lanatieri, who is a pastor and is I'll call it all up in the recovery world. And you are drinking iced tea.
That's correct.
And some water out of a lovely
Steelers
glass. You're welcome.
He just rolled his eyes at you. He looked at you and rolled his eyes at you.
So really, really, really wanted to kind of talk about because every time I talk to you, I feel like you have 47 different stories of sort of shit you've seen, shit you've gone through, stuff you've helped other people through. But I think first and most importantly, can we just talk a little bit about your own story and kind of where you came from, where you came up from, and sort of how you ended up where you are today?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. And Clarissa. Yeah, 28 years in August, I'll be sober. And as an Essex kid, Catholic school, by the time I hit 8th grade, they were like, you have to go, and told my parents to take my brother with them, my younger brother. They were done with the Lantieri situation. Got to high school. I was the guy that could be anything at any party. I was the fun guy. I was a jock. I played football. I also sat on the parking lots in the morning smoking weed with all the burnouts. So I was smack dab in the middle of it all. And end of my 11th grade year, the cheerleader that I got pregnant changed the kind of trajectory of my life. Yeah, my son was born while I gave the speech at graduation. He was actually in the audience. Back then, I was the kid that was class president that had a kid. So it was I did a couple of news interviews about that. I stayed in school, stayed in sports, got a job.
And by the way, this isn't 2017. This is
1985.
Okay.
Were you a running back?
No, lineman. Yeah.
Football's
Also,
come a long way there.
I finished fourth in the state of Maryland in a 100-meter dash my senior year.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. Because you're about my size.
I had some quickness, but I've always had fat and happy. That's how I'm trying to say it. I wear my belly well. No, but the responsibility, I think I was already in active addiction by that point. The lion was out of the bag. And so I took off. I didn't want the responsibility. I joined the Army. Hooked up with a girl right before I went in that didn't think she could get pregnant. And 3 months into my military career, she was pregnant. So we got married. And then by 1989, when I got out of the military, I was divorced. So 2 kids, 2 different women, married and divorced, clueless. I got busted in the military on a urinalysis. So the day I actually got promoted to E4, I got busted back to E2.
Ooh.
So my military career was over. So I came back home, didn't know what the heck to do. So I got a job at a 24/7 liquor store in Essex. 6 in the morning till 2 in the morning, 365 days a year. I had 1 day off a week. It was my heaven.
I was going to say, good place for an alcoholic.
Great place for an alcoholic. Didn't have to buy my alcohol. Figured out how to supplement my income. Let's say I was into pharmaceutical sales. I was a one-stop shop. Come get your 12-pack and I'd sell you an 8-ball. Making it nice and easy. But the addiction was way out of control. It got really bad. Lots of accidents. Never got caught. I had friends that were cops. Like they kind of knew what I did. And they just said, if I catch you, I'll have to arrest you. And I would just say, you guys are just, it'll never happen.
Yeah.
You'll never catch me. Yeah. Well, I came to the morning of August 3rd in a hotel room with a lovely young lady that I don't know her name. And
You
I
don't
just
remember me? It's been so long.
I'm going to be having nightmares. I can see it coming. Was it him? Was it him?
The young lady was very fuzzy, about 5'5".
It was your
the
Jewish
beard.
lover from another mother.
You had me at the beard.
Yeah, I brought you breakfast too, you asshole.
That's funny. That's the lie. I was ready to die. Like my life was over. Clueless as to what my next step was going to be. Had a pocket full of money, but owned nothing. The best thinking I could come up with was to head back to Myrtle Beach. And the peaceful times when I was in the military was when I went to the beach and just sat on a beach. Mm-hmm. Probably passed out on the beach. That was the best thing I could come up with. And at that point, I was driving my brother's broken down 1984 Ford LTD that had burn holes in the ceiling from messing with the lighter, and enough Burger King bags to sink a ship. Jumped in the car and the car broke down at John Hopkins Bayview parking lot. And at that point, my brother had a couple of years sober. And it's still kind of fuzzy. I remember sitting in the parking lot. I have an 8-ball of cocaine left in my glove compartment. I got a fifth of Jägermeister in the seat beside me. And I opened the hood. Why, I have no idea. I've never even changed oil. Like, that's not me. But I remember there was a sign, something about drug addiction and alcohol prevention or something. And I said, well, maybe I can go hide out in there for a little while and come up with a game plan. And when I walked up to the door, it was locked. And one of those Pinkerton guards, like the security at the hospital, comes walking up, and I started giving him some crap. I'm like, well, you can only be a drug addict from 9 to 5. Like, what's the problem?
Fair question.
I need in here. Come on. And he's like, you gotta go through the emergency room. I distinctly remember how I felt on that walk to the emergency room. Like, I knew that something was going to have to change. I don't know what it was yet, but something needed. I was on my last leg. They asked me when I walked through the door, can I help you? I said, yes, I can't help myself anymore. She said, drugs and alcohol? I said, yes. She said, what kind? I said, all of them. Like,
yes.
Yes.
Are we allowed to laugh at that part? I figure if you can smile, we can smile.
I can laugh about it today, for sure. I sat in the emergency room for 14 hours with the goodies still in my car. I had called my dad. My dad was my best friend. My parents were divorced young. And I was going to just get him to come sit with me. And I had an uncle that dropped dead of a heart attack on the boardwalk. And he was with my grandmother. So then I called my little brother. And he showed up. And we just sat there. 14, 15 hours in, he walks up to the lady and said, look, find him a bed or find some place for me to take him. Like, he's here. He's going to do it. Let's get it done. And she said, oh, we called his name 13 hours ago.
What?
We thought he had left. We'll take him back right now. And that was it. I haven't touched a drop. I've been around every drug, been around every alcohol. I haven't seen cocaine live in 27 plus years. I think I would still run quickly. That was my favorite.
So did Ben Johnson.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, so it's been a series of, I knew when I got sober, obviously I didn't go back to work at the bar. I don't have any real skill other than running my mouth. I took a job.
Whoa, that's a skill, dude.
I know that now. Right. I should have been a lawyer.
Don't tell my clients. Yeah, come on,
I should have been a lawyer. Absolutely. Yeah, I just wanted to get a normal 9-to-5 job like the rest of my friends, and maybe I would be okay, and maybe I would be able to drink someday again like a normal human being. I got a job at a place called Vulcanhart, building stoves, industrial stoves in Dundalk. the bathroom was clear on the other side of the plant from where I was. And I still had many stomach issues, gastric problems. I never ate right. I was physically sober maybe 3 months at that point, but there was still going through it, I guess. Yeah. And so I was trying to get to the bathroom and I didn't make it. And it was quite embarrassing. So I left the plant, got in the car, drove home, took a shower, called back to the plant. And I said, yeah, I had an accident. And what do you mean an accident? And I'm like, I crapped my pants. Like, I had to go home and take a shower. He said, well, you left the plant without permission. We're going to have to suspend you. And I've been there like 3 weeks or something. So I started crying. I didn't know I had no ability to respond to anything. And I think my dad told me, go to the hospital. Like, go, maybe depression, something along those lines. And I remember I went to Franklin Square and they took my my shoestrings, put me in this room, and a nurse came in and she's like, what's going on? I'm like, I don't know. I'm 3 months sober. I'm trying to I just crapped my pants and got suspended. And she's like, have you been to an AA meeting yet? And I'm like, no, I haven't been to an AA meeting. She said, I'll be right back. She comes back, hands me my shoestrings. She said, you don't need to be here. Just go find an AA meeting. And that was it. The story goes on from there.
So, what I've learned in doing what we do, kind of being on the other side of things, is, there's various ways for people to be addicts. And there's also various ways for people to overcome addiction and sort of hit rock bottom. And your rock bottom story sounds very different than a lot of people's rock bottom story. Like, usually it involves overdose or just jail, or, some other sort of like catastrophic thing, watching someone get shot or shot at or getting shot. But yours is really different. Is there any kind of rhyme or reason as to that you've been able to figure out in doing this for 28 years as to how people, what types of addiction there are, and then how people sort of overcome it?
No.
What about you personally? Where does yours, is yours a genetic thing? Is it a personality thing? Is it a combination of everything?
My father very rarely drank, but when he did, he got embarrassingly drunk. There was he worked for NSA, and he would ride a van from work to they were in a van pool. So a lot of times on a Friday, they'd kill a fifth of Jack, all the guys in the van, before they got back to where their cars were. And my brother and I would have friends spending the night, pre-planned, and he'd come home to try to take us to Pizza Hut and just all over the road.
Banged up.
Yeah. And I remember probably 12, 13 years old, calling my grandfather. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Dad's hammered. I have the money. I'm going to sit here and eat. He's out in the car getting sick. Come get us. So I had a understanding, I think, a little bit. And for me, the bottom was, as I said, my dad was my best friend, best father that I've ever could imagine. And I wasn't that to my kids. That was the thing. I wanted to be a dad to my kids. I had no idea how to do it, but that was the thing that was bothering me so bad. Cause I didn't see them very, very rarely. I gave my daughter up for adoption because I was the guy that would go to pick her up. They're like, I'm coming to get you. I got to stop at the bar and drink one before I get there. One turned into, all right, right after lunch, I'm going to grab something to eat. I'll be out right after lunch. Turned into dinner. Turned into, I got a flat tire. The dog ate my homework.
Whatever it was.
Right. Whatever it was. And my ex-wife at that point tolerated that for about 6 months. And I used to buy the big gift for her for Christmas, the new bedroom set or the big swing set or whatever. And she said, why don't you give her the gift of a real father and just let her then husband have custody? And at that point, I was probably paying $260 a week. I think that's the number that's in my head for child support. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll take that extra $260 a week and put it to really good use. And So that's what I did on the parking lot of the bar I worked in. I gave up custody of my daughter. That was a little bit of that driving force that stopped me, like, miserable. That wasn't me. That wasn't how I was raised to make that.
That was the substance abuse.
That was absolutely substance abuse.
I think that's what a lot of people sort of get confused about. And everyone sitting in this room has dealt with it, whether it's clients or family or friends. But the idea of realizing that it's not the person inside. Like when you get these, especially like the theft cases and the stealing,
it's not
like,
a moral issue.
It's not. It's not. And it's not them when they're making a lot of these decisions. And I think a lot of people who haven't dealt with addiction either through work or through family kind of look at the situation as saying, well, they could choose to be sober anytime they want.
Correct.
And there are some situations that it's very easy to say that. I think what I've learned, and this is a pretty shitty comparison to make, but I don't think that argument falls flat on its face any less to some degree, and I think my wife may disagree with me, than how people say you could choose not to be gay. Like I think once that disease gets a hold of you, you just watch people morph into something that they're not. And then when they're sober again, it's like a completely different human being, which was not the human you got in the beginning, and it wasn't the human in the middle. And that's something, whether it's you or like we've had Bruce White on before, who's
a good dude.
Yeah. And so I think that's the weirder part of what we do when people are like, oh, you just represent drug dealers, and you meet a drug dealer who, like you said, cash in his pocket. He could be wearing $1,000 tennis shoes. He could be wearing a Montclair jacket, but he's got the same fucking pill problem
100%.
For the guy he's selling. He just has access to the pills so he can use. I know I just threw a lot at you, but I think as a prosecutor, we didn't see that side of it. So it was very easy to be judgmental. Mm-hmm. And then once you switch sides, you realize how much gray there is. And you see the families who deal with it and the mental illness that goes untreated and people are co-occurring. Sorry, I'm sitting here testifying for you.
You're telling, keep going. You see it as well. Like I'm sorry about that. I'm so fortunate, I think, to have a friend like Kurt, like that I met and we just started having conversations about. And because I see they're not getting the fair deal. Like there's a mom that called Kurt this morning that, son got third DUI maybe. And it's all fentanyl. It's not.
But you and Kurt have been friends. I mean, we've known you for I feel like a decade or something at this point. Like 8
years maybe.
Yeah, and Kurt sat on a board with you and
2014.
Yeah. So I mean, you guys go back to before you were even doing some of the treatment you were doing, right?
Correct. Absolutely. I was sponsoring a guy that I think at that point was number 5. We were dealing with number 5. He's had 6.
That's how I met you
since then. Right. That was more than that. Yeah.
That was the first time I met you.
Yeah.
And you came to support him.
Yeah. We started talking and it's like, Kurt was asking questions. Like he wanted to care about what was really happening. Like, I think there was an understanding of something. This just isn't bad people, this is sick people, and our literature tells us that the disease, the illness, they don't even call it a disease. They call it an illness. It centers in our mind. The alcohol and the drugs are just symptoms of what's really going on inside. And trying to get to the bottom of some of that, because there's like the case we talked about today, the young man that's in jail needs to be there for a little while, like probably might save his life.
I mean, look, my cousin needed to sit. I mean, there are some people that just need to sit, and there's not, like you found yourself in a situation where you made a choice and you said, you know what, this is my time. I've hit rock bottom. I'm going to go in.
Yeah.
And other people, they need to be stopped. And for their own benefit before they die or hurt somebody else, frankly.
The game has changed. Fentanyl has changed the game. It's a totally different ball game since fentanyl really came on the scene. Like there hasn't been heroin in Baltimore, I think, for the last 3 years or something.
But no one believes that. Like when you say that to people, though,
is that true?
It's 100% because it's cheaper.
Yeah,
there's still some heroin, but it's mostly fentanyl. Like they'll say it's heroin, but it's mostly.
So I got
fentanyl.
a daughter that's a nurse. And I work closely with the Office of Drug Control Policy in Harford County. Like they've been huge friends of the recovery community. Clients are going into the hospital going, I had a heroin overdose, and they're taking blood work. There's no heroin. Like, and it's been like that for a long time. They think they're doing heroin still, but it's not. It's fentanyl.
And I'll tell you, the cases that I have coming back, like I was looking at a drug analysis for a case, guy had 750 capsules on him. There was still heroin in it. but the quantity of heroin was de minimis when compared with the amount of fentanyl.
Correct.
Because fentanyl is synthetic. You can produce it inside of a warehouse.
Yep.
Heroin is obviously not synthetic.
Right.
And if you don't have to grow a plant to make a drug, then it's going to be a whole lot cheaper to make it in China and then transport it up through Mexico.
Yep.
And so I don't think a lot of people understand that I mean, there was, and we were talking about this before the show came on. We just found out, juvenile overdoses are up. And I was seeing somebody on Twitter comment yesterday that don't let anybody tell you about this narrative of marijuana being laced with fentanyl. It's a false narrative. They're just trying to do this to stop the recreationalizing of marijuana. And I'm like, and it was a pretty progressive person. I'm like, you have no fucking clue what you're talking about.
Right.
We are definitely seeing situations in Baltimore City where marijuana is laced with fentanyl. There were actually 2 juveniles that overdosed within the last month due to marijuana that was laced with fentanyl. Is it like the massive epidemic problem? No, but I don't like when people go on Twitter and be like, they're just doing
dead
this.
Kids though.
Yeah, I know, but it's very easy for people. This is the problem with this progressive bullshit in Baltimore City.
Push a button.
Is they're like, oh, you're just fighting marijuana. And it's like, it's in it. It's like everything. We used to get, when we were prosecutors, we get these DEA reports or advisories saying like, before fentanyl, it was, remember when they were mixing Xanax or the benzodiazepines
Absolutely.
in with, and we'd get strainers testing positive for benzos. And then they were selling the addicts fucking promethazine to get you right during the day to deal with the nausea.
Yep.
And so, I mean, they're like full on fucking pharmacies, right? And that was the beginning of, hey guys, we're going to find something cheaper than fentanyl. That we're going to find something cheaper to mix with the heroin because it's easier to get opioids. It's easier to get those that are man-made way than the plant, right?
Right. Well, I said for the longest time, I'm in Harford County, and I started. I was part of a nonprofit long before the one I'm a part of now. It was called Face It. It was a faith community based. Like my check your collar at the door. I'm not here to talk about what flavor of coffee you're drinking. I'm here to have a conversation that across denominations, all the way around, are all dealing with getting the phone calls. Can you help me pay my rent? I'm running out of food. And not being, I went to Bible college. Like, it's not talked about. Like, there's many senior clergy that they had no idea. Like, even how to ask a question about what's really going on. Like, what's underneath of what's happening. So I put this nonprofit together, received $2 million grants from the federal government. Well, they were $500,000 matched dollar for dollar by the county at that point. And all that, I would have brunches, clergy brunches. And the joke is I had the Jewish guy, the Muslim guy, and the Catholic priest sitting around the table, and we're talking about substance abuse. And it really happened. And I kept saying back then, we have a prescription pill problem in Harford County. And most of Harford County would say, no, that's Baltimore City.
Nope.
Or maybe it's
pill parties.
Edgewood.
The kids in high
Maybe
school.
Well, but that Route 40 corridor.
The kids in
what-
high school would go to pill parties.
Yeah, but you know what he's saying, right? First of all, what he's saying is that's white people saying white people don't have drug problems. And the second thing is, I will tell you, being a kid from PG County, I saw cocaine in middle school. I saw weed. I saw alcohol. I didn't see pills until the rich white kids in college pulled out pills and started cutting them up on textbooks because they were getting them from their parents, raiding cabinets. Parents were doctors, easy scripts. Like, I didn't see any of the pills in
scripts
high
for
school.
Oxy back then. I mean, you would write scripts
Oh, of course.
for Oxy.
I mean, or the number of
Nothing.
football players. Like, now it's a bad joke. Let me ask you a question we haven't gotten to. If you don't mind, I'm sorry. I know you're
Jump in.
What advice would you give to practitioners? We have prosecutors that listen. We're obviously defense attorneys. What are we doing wrong? I don't care about what we're doing right now. What are we doing wrong that if you're saying we could do better in the criminal justice system when it comes to how you're helping people? Because we get people in snippets, right?
Yeah.
Remember, you know those books where you do like that and you get to see the whole picture and you go through 500 pages, and that's what we do with people's lives, right? We see the whole picture and it's like, hey, we read the book, right? But in reality, you're seeing every one of those pages as you deal with people in treatment.
Yeah.
So what are we doing wrong?
I think my opinion would be there's a lot of right that's going on, first of all. But the other side of it is, so the new thing that's coming out is harm reduction is the buzzwords now,
What does that mean?
where they're safe injection sites. You come here, we'll test your drugs, give you clean needles, You know, there'll be a doctor on staff, a counselor if you want to stop. Like,
Does it work?
Hamsterdam.
right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not a proponent of that yet. I do know that something's not working. Like, I feel like I'm nailing Jello to a tree oftentimes. Like,
That's a good phrase.
They just keep dying. And I keep saying not one more. But the only way I know is abstinence. That's how it worked for me. AA, NA, all of them have been working for a very long time in their abstinent programs.
See, mandatory minimums don't work on our end. And the only way that the criminal justice system has reacted to fentanyl is to make the same mistake we made in the 90s, which was we got scared of crack cocaine in DC and black people and violence and made some pretty racist policy with the 96 crime bill. And then while we were all patting ourselves on the back, and this is a speech that I've given a million times that they've heard, we then invoked mandatory minimums for fentanyl. And so that doesn't work either.
No.
Okay. What do you think about the idea of having criminal liability for somebody that buys someone else drugs? Because I would just say before you give your opinion, that doesn't sit well with me. And for instance, yesterday, the person that gave, the famous person that OD'd,
The Angels picture.
not just Tyler Skaggs.
Which one?
There was a second.
Prince,
exactly.
Tom Petty.
Yes. Got
Foo
10
Fighter
years
guy.
yesterday.
Foo Fighter, yeah.
Got 10 years yesterday for giving drugs. And so that doesn't sit
Mac
well with
Miller,
me
one of them guys.
for the same reason that you just said, which is you think you're buying one thing and you're buying another. And I get stuck in this idea of like, well, if they're an addict too,
Yeah.
and they're buying their friend who's an addict stuff, should they really be doing 10 years in jail? Because the day before it might have been the person that bought them drugs.
So here's my rub there.
Yeah.
I lost a son to an overdose, and I had put him in treatment a few times, and he just didn't stay. Couldn't smoke in one of them. He wasn't ready. After the second or third one he came out, he started going to AA meetings. Like, he got his 3-month chip. Like, things were going real good. I took him out to Connecticut to go watch some fights, mixed martial arts stuff, just a weekend away. And the conversation was, Dad, I think I want to try to learn how to drink successfully. And I'm like, He goes, I was a drug addict. As long as I stay away from all the drugs, like, I might smoke a little weed. God made weed, so it ain't bad. And I just want to have a glass of wine or drink a beer. And I'm like, look, all I can tell you is jails, institutions, and death. You've been in jail. You've been in treatment. Like, if you're an alcoholic or a drug addict, that's what I know it to be. And so he attempted to drink successfully for a little while. And him and a buddy went to go buy some Coke after a birthday party, and they just wanted to stay away because they had tickets to Hershey Park the next day. And the cocaine that they bought was fentanyl. And he wasn't a heroin kid. He was an up kid. Like, he'd smoked weed a little bit, had gone through all the teenage junk, I guess, because he had a non-existent father. You know, I wasn't there I was living that life. There was no way that I could parent at that point. So I take a full lot of responsibility for it. But yeah, that night they did a couple lines and he didn't wake up the next morning. So I went after the guy. Like, I have friends. I've been doing this a long time. And there are sometimes I need help, like, without people knowing what's going on. Like, I'm trying to save lives, save kids, get kids away from parents that won't stop, those kind of things. And I do it under the radar. Like, I don't ever want anybody to come knocking on my door to come ask me about.
But I think that's your point. Right?
Do you mind? I want to ask a follow-up question, which I think is not quite as technical as what you're talking about, but Jeremy, but more generally, we've talked on this show a couple of times in the past about decriminalization of drug possession, right? It's always been a big story in Baltimore City. You're talking about, 3 things: jails, institution, and death. On the first end of that, when we're talking about helping people, that's your role. Is the criminal justice system the right system to link those people to the help that you're talking about?
Sometimes I will say it's so different for so many people. Like, I know people that have gotten locked up and went to jail, spent 2 nights before they got bailed out, and have never had another drink. Like, I'm not built for jail kind of deal. And I would be honest,
me when he said that, by the way, just in case anybody didn't, to just make you laugh for a second, he didn't look at either of you. He literally looked at me and said, I'm not built for jail. And then his eyes got big.
so in case anything ever happens, guys, like, you got to get me out of jail quick.
But the other piece of that, though, is that some of those people come to you because, right? They come to you through Kurt or through Jeremy or through Clarissa. So there is a way in which, well, I'll let you finish first.
Sure. So
I'm sorry.
However, there are those two. I think for a little while I would have said I would rather my son be in jail than dead.
Right.
Right. So I have it has changed the way I operate a lot of times. Like, I would sit in front of parents a lot of times. You don't understand if I throw them out, if I don't pay the bill. And now I say, oh, I do understand.
Yeah.
Like, what you're doing isn't working. Like, you could make the decision that if he's going to die, you want him to die in your house, like, instead of out on the street. That's your choice. But there are times that the criminal justice system can work well to break the cycle, even the physical addiction. Absolutely. I think what we battle so much of now that I don't fully comprehend is the mental health. The mental health is lost. It's really. I had a young man, or not a young man, he was my age, kid I played Little League baseball with. Finally got him into the chronic pain clinic at Hopkins, and he was a crack addict, and it was only because he loved the hookers. Like, that was he'd pick up these hookers and get him a nice hotel room and keep going, and then start buying them drugs. That's where his heroin use came from. That was last on the list for him. It was everything else. They put him on methadone, like prescribed methadone in the hospital. And I'm like, I went and talked to the doctor. I'm like, why would you addict them to something? Harm reduction. Studies are showing that if they're on a methadone, they'll stay alive.
Like Suboxone.
Very similar to Suboxone. Absolutely. And if they do that with the thought of, at some point I'm coming off, like, here's the like, these kids that are on Suboxone and the methadone, they go to a NA meeting. Oftentimes they're not clean, so they don't have a voice, right? To the purist, right? That's where harm reduction comes in. Harm reduction says there's nobody else for them to go to.
Well, even some clients that are on methadone, and this is more than an observation with a question, which is, I still don't really understand, because the clients that I've had on methadone they don't come off clean to me at all. And their speech still seems affected.
Yes.
Their thought seems affected.
Yes.
Glassy eyed. And so I sometimes wonder, without the in-depth knowledge, like, I kind of question the efficacy of it, because it just seems like it's like a controlled fucked up.
It's for
Is that
profit.
what it is, I guess?
It's for
Is that the
profit.
way the people in the treatment world
In
view
my
it?
opinion, it's for
Well,
profit.
your opinion carries some weight. So, I mean,
So I had the treatment center that I used a lot of times was a 28-day inpatient before the outpatient programs really came to fruition. And there was a doctor in there that we'd take them in there. They give them a 3-day step down withdrawal using Suboxone. And day 4, they were clean. So they went through the withdrawal, not as harsh if it was the same day. At day 27, before the 28th day, the doctor will walk in and say, here's my card. Much like a diabetic needs insulin for the rest of your life, you're going to need to be on Suboxone for the rest of your life.
yeah, because they get paid for that, for writing the scripts.
I'm like, I just paid $4,000 for you to go to 28-day treatment to get clean,
to be given a new prescription at
Get
the end,
to
on
be
something
given a new
else.
prescription.
and a new addiction.
Absolutely.
So,
And-
piggybacking off of that question, the two people that I would say I trust the most when it comes to addiction, and a lot of other individuals that I've talked to regarding addiction, are what I'll call purists. Do you think that people can, like, if you're an alcoholic, can you have a glass of wine at dinner? Can you do what your son thought he was going to be able to do? Or is that just like your brain tricking you into getting back into that pattern.
You know, the way this thing works is this is how it worked for me. That's the best I got. I have been doing this long enough that I can form some opinions, right? If you're alcoholic, no, you're done. One day at a time. Like we say things like that first drink gets you drunk. And we were like, I've never gotten drunk off of one drink. Like it sets the compulsion. Like I know today I could very easily enjoy a glass with you guys and probably would be okay. But once I figured that I could do that one, I know me. Like I'm into a 12 pack. I'm buying the case. I'm drinking the fifth. I'm buying the Coke. I'm off to the races. I've heard it happen too many times to those people that say, yeah, I think I want to try drinking successfully again. Like I'm a grown up now. I'm not a teenager. Like, why can't I have a glass of wine at dinner time? I answer, go ahead. Knowing what you know about your alcoholism, if you think that's a good idea, nothing I'm going to say is going to stop you. My advice, if you're asking my advice, don't do it. Postpone it till that thought goes away. Because unfortunately, it doesn't happen often. Like I said, fentanyl's changed the game. Yeah. Big time.
Well, there's no dabbling with fentanyl. I mean, I think that's...
So, yeah, I just had this Facebook. I have a stepbrother that a couple years older than I am, like a pull yourself up out of belt strap kind of guy and get it right. He has such a problem. He's probably listening right now with the term accidental overdose. He's like, how's it an accident? Like, don't people know that there is a chance that just the first one, like, haven't we not been talking about just say no stuff? It's not an accident. You take it with the thought of you want to get high, but you know in the back of your mind, it might be the last one. And there's no way for me to explain to somebody that it hasn't happened to, like that hasn't been close to, it's not a choice, right? Some want to end it. Like some are sick and tired and they're not willing to do. I mean, I've driven through Baltimore City enough time, guys, that it's sad what happens down there sometimes. Like I don't see hope, and I'm a hope guy. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I don't see it. It's frightening. And to have that happening in Havre Race and in Falston, like kids that just, there's no hope because they can't stop, you know, like understanding like there's a young man, I think you may have helped me with him at one point. He was in my youth group when I first went to church. Kid was a phenomenal athlete. Got hurt his senior year in high school. The pain pills started. And it has been he's missing now. He's been missing for 8 months. No, but parents don't know where he's at. His brothers haven't seen him.
I had a college quarterback, same thing, high school quarterback that had a full ride to a D1 school.
Yep.
Ended up having a hip injury, and he's prescribed a slew of opioids to deal with it. And then from there, it was just downhill.
Yeah, there's my story too. So I went through an 8-year chronic pain, like had 26 surgeries in this region, and they nobody could figure it out. So what started at 30 milligrams of oxycodone, and it's like chewing gum to me. I don't know. I'd end up in the hospital and end up with like 30 or 40 milligrams of Dilaudid before I could go. And then they want to write a script, and I'm like, no, I'm in recovery. I'll take pain medicine if I'm in pain, because if I get hit by a bus, I better go to a doctor, not to a recovery meeting, right? Yeah, do what the doctor says.
You better call Kurt.
Ka-ching.
If you get hurt, call Kurt.
See, that was the remarketing.
You've been waiting for that.
We've been trying to sell Kurt on if you get hurt, call Kurt, and he just doesn't.
That's funny.
We want a bus with his face. Put him on a bus.
Right.
Laying down sideways like George Costanza on a bus with on a bed of pillows.
Absolutely. So that 30 million, I ended up at the end of the 8-year, it was 75 of a fentanyl patch. 8 milligrams of Dilaudid every 4 hours with 30 milligrams of oxycodone for
Are you a
breakthrough
fucking
pain.
elephant at the zoo? Like, were they?
I was still in pain. Like that was the problem. I'm at Hopkins Pain Clinic. I'm like, I'm in recovery is my life. Like I don't want to be eating like my spirit was gone. Like my pastor is one of my best friends, right? I was like, dude, I can't pray no more. I'm so sick and tired of asking God to make this go away. Like he's heard me. Like I just can't keep doing it. I'm going nuts. And I ended up at this clinic at Hopkins, and they said, we're going to fix it. I mean, every time I went to the hospital, they're like, oh, you're a drug addict. And I'm like, here's the pills.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't need to be here.
what do you want me to, like, if I wanted to get high, I wouldn't have the $14,000 of medical bill debt because sometimes the ER coded it where they paid it. Sometimes they coded it where they didn't. Like, I could go buy dope off the street. Like, I'm around it every day. I wouldn't be going through this. And, yeah, I met that's Jerry Sayers that you met. Psychiatrist. He's now up at Lancaster. He taught me about that. He listened to the mental health portion of it. You know, what the mind tells you when you're in pain. And it's truly learning how to break a cycle. But that's only going to happen when you had enough. like the pain pills weren't working. Like, what is the option? And the pain center at Hopkins, the head doctor there said his best advice to me was to take a narcotic holiday. I'm like, what the hell's that? He said, just wean yourself off and stay off of them for a little while and then start taking them again and it'll work. I'm like, am I not at John Hopkins Hospital? Like, what are you talking about? Like, what? Okay, I'll stop. I've withdrawn myself hundreds of times because if I'm not in pain, I'm not taking pain medicine. And it got to the point where the doctor's like, you got to be on a base level of pain medicine or we're not going to treat you in the hospital. Like, you can't keep going to the hospital for this. I'm like, well, the urologist can't do anything. The gastro can't do anything. I had an open laparotomy in the hospital one time. Like, let me go in and look in your stomach, see if something funky's happening there. That clueless as to what was happening. And it was just more pain medicine was the answer. Until this doctor told me, there's still times I have some pain now. I've had 2 knee replacements. Like, there's sometimes pain medicine is required, but nothing like
You were taking.
I wonder if any of that is, I don't know how long ago this was, but I wonder how much of that, because I think that's
7 or 8 years.
that's like how this epidemic began, right? And to your point, it's profit driven. And the Sackler case is certainly not one we've discussed on the show, but
Right.
Is huge. I wonder how in the recent years, as people have become aware of this issue, how much doctors are still doing that.
They're still doing it a ton with Suboxone. I mean, I've had cases of DUI recently within the last year where the guy said he was, I was driving and I had Suboxone. They didn't tell me I couldn't drive after Suboxone. And it was like, I reached out to the doctor. I subpoenaed the records. You know who I'm talking about. And the doctor got real squirrely with me.
So the pendulum actually,
there are doctors who are getting filthy fucking rich, prescribing Suboxone, especially. Yeah.
honestly, I think my experience is the pendulum swung the other way.
Yeah.
Like, there are a lot of people that would benefit from low dose monitoring of pain medicine that they've cut them off.
They can't get it now.
Those people are going to the street and self-medicating. Like, that just keeps it going up because they're
I
petrified.
hadn't thought about that.
Right there.
No, the same docs that were making money as pill mills went from pill mills to legitimizing themselves as Suboxone centers.
Or they bought weed licenses.
Well, and it's what shouldn't be lost on anyone is that Congress did this. Like, Congress said we should be able to prescribe Suboxone without you. Like, with methadone, it's different because you got to go to the center to get the methadone.
There's take homes now.
Well, now there are, but in the beginning when Suboxone first came out, it was like, oh, well, that'll be the difference from methadone because there was no take homes and Suboxone was the take home, and then they evened it out and said, no, take both home. It's fine. And now what are the jails filled with? The jails are filled with Suboxone. Like, the number one thing that is being, because they're strips and they're, I won't say easy to get. I mean, we know there was a lawyer, Steve Mitchell, before he died, that was charged with unintentionally smuggling Suboxone, and knowing, if you knew Steve, God rest his soul, a family.
Totally possible.
It's the only person on earth that if they said he unintentionally smuggled into a jail, I believe it. And apparently the prosecutors in Hagerstown did too. But because the family prepared the trial notebook, which is insane, but if you knew Steve, was very plausible. And he brought the Suboxone in the trial notebooks. Point
Amazing.
being is that's
Amazing.
the number one
It was
thing.
at tab D.
That would be tab S for Suboxone. Come on, man.
The major problem with all this, I think at this point, it's like, so the medical doctors aren't communicating with the mental health doctors, and the mental health doctors aren't communicating with, what's going on, like what really the problem is. Like, I'm not a doctor. Like, I don't want to tell somebody don't get on Suboxone. I'm not, like, that's not what I want to do. If you come and ask me for help, I want to say, absolutely, I'll help you. But at some point, there needs to be a goal that we're going abstinent. If you want my help, I'm not dictating when that is. That's up to you. You're going to have to make that decision. I've not had a successful case of that yet. I just buried another one. Mother told me we buried him.
Let's go to some lighter, perhaps, topics. So,
Do you help people that stopped eating meat to help them learn to eat meat again?
Eat meat? No.
Was that offensive enough, Clarissa?
Yeah, like I said, mental health problem. Why would somebody stop eating meat?
Exactly.
There's a mental health problem.
There we go. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you. She's racist against brisket and other smoked meats. Next
Shame,
topic.
shame.
how did you get into helping other people out? Like, what was it? Because, like, you're sober, you're kind of getting your life back together. What was it that made you say, I want to go crawl into that vacant and pull out some drug-addicted kid?
I thought you were going to say
to
copper
help.
wire there. I wasn't where you were.
And copper wire.
And appliances.
The easy answer to that question for me is God. That became real to me. That I didn't think he would have anything to do with a guy like me. The things I did, my faith became very important. The 12-step models are very much about you got to give it away to keep it. Like in our big book, sponsorship's not even mentioned. It's the point of the book. Like, you get sober, and the 12-step is like, give it away.
Pay it forward.
Yeah, you got to help somebody else. And, I went from, 1 to 5 years, 6 nights a week going to meetings. At that 5-year mark, I started going to church. Met a hot chick. And the Lord knew what would get me into church. I've been married to her for 22 years this year. But
That is the first book of the Bible, Adam and Eve. Right?
the book of Timothy is what this is how you do it.
No, that's Montel Jordan. Dude. That's the New Testament.
It's Friday night. Yeah. I probably a dopamine dump when I see the light bulb go off on somebody's in their eyes that they get it is a second only to sex. You like that feeling of when you see a guy go, I don't ever have to live like this again. Like, I'll chase that. That's my drug.
It's pretty healthy.
Yeah,
You run into people randomly too, like supermarket, just run into people and they're like, hey man, like
I wear shirts like I don't want to be anonymous.
Yeah.
Like first job I got in sobriety, I went to apply to be a truck driver, like delivering parts for tractor trailer. I'm talking to this guy and he's like, there's something weird about you. Like, what's your story? And I'm like, I've been sober 6 months trying to put God in my life. And he's like, all right, let's have lunch tomorrow. Offered me a job the next day, making more money I've ever made legally in my life, selling tractor trailer parts. Like, I'd spend a day in a port. I'm making 6 figures. Life is good.
that's what I tell people. Unless you're selling 50 or 60 keys, like most of the guys who are selling on corners, you might have a pair of Jordans, or now it's Balenciagas or whatever the guys are wearing.
Right.
You may have a Montclair jacket, so you may have be wearing $1,500 to $2,000 worth of clothing, but.
I think it was 91. I was about a key a week.
Yeah.
Like, I got up to
Yeah,
that.
but if they hit your house, it's a mattress on the floor. Not you, but like with my guys, it's the low level guys or even the mid level guys, it's a mattress on the floor. Like,
Right.
Even then, and most of the big guys, they get hit and their girls sell all their shit anyway. So it's like, it's never, and then they come out and the guys that get CDLs, you just got me to truck driving. I have a client that I talked to yesterday that now is a truck driver. makes way more money. He's like, man, I don't wake up in the middle of the night fucking sweating. I don't worry at 5 a.m. when I hear something loud that they're hitting my fucking door. And he was like, I make way more money than I ever made now. And I have health insurance. It's like stupid, but
I went this morning before I went to my mother's. I call him my nephew. He has a couple state checks, like insurance, income tax checks. Like he was on the streets for 2 years. So like this money popped up. He's got this money. He don't have a bank account. Here's the criminal justice system problem, or the laws haven't really caught up to what's really happening. So we moved him. I talked to the judge. I went to court in Charlotte, talked to the probation officer, convinced them to let him come back up to get him away. Like, that's not always necessary. This kid needed to get away. And they said, yes, he has this money, sober 3 months today. We go to sit down and get a bank account, and they're like, his driver's license still says North Carolina. So they won't open a bank account here. I'm like, like what do I need to do?
I mean, that was the problem with the person today, was the inability to obtain access to the funds to hire an attorney. Like it's and we try to facilitate that kind of stuff. And
the jails used to have, and it was actually the clergy that would facilitate it, because you would have the pastor or the reverend that went in and out of the jails. They would get a power of attorney signed. It was a pretty great process. The jails during COVID stopped providing a lot of those services, stopped letting clergy, which I think is a whole different, even being Jewish. Like it's a huge fucking problem to not let clergy in the jail. And I understood with COVID, I actually don't have an issue with that part of it, but clergy served a lot of the collateral services.
Absolutely.
That the jails either chose not to or wouldn't.
Part of why I went to Bible college. I left that tractor trailer job, I was selling medical equipment.
Did you also play lineman at Bible college?
I can't tell all the secrets. It'll be in my book. No,
he was on the football scholarship.
No, Bible college was rough. Like, so
please, do we need another episode to talk about how Bible college is rough?
Well, here's the deal. So I'm in Bible
college.
college.
Did the nuns hit you with a ruler? And can I see a video of that?
Breadboard.
I don't even know what that is.
A breadboard, like a cutting board.
A breadboard? You got hit with
sad face.
How old were
drill
you?
Holes. 3rd grade. By the time I hit 4th grade, she's hit me on the top of my
I
head.
thought Bible college was Bible college.
No, this is a Catholic school with the breadboards. Like way past that. No, I'm in class with a bunch of traditional kids that are right out of high school. Most of them homeschooled. Going to Bible college. Parents are well off. I didn't know how to learn. Like, these kids weren't bringing books to class. And I'm like an old fat dude, walking with, like, I couldn't keep up. Like, how? So my daughter was in high school, and we used to fight over computer time. I walked away from the 6 figures to make $6,000 a year to go to Bible. Like, I knew I wanted to just help people. Like, I knew it. It wasn't a job. Like, if I didn't have to take the $6,000, I'd have said keep it. Like, I needed to pay gas money sometimes. I've never in 27 years taken a dime for helping somebody. Never. What I do now oftentimes is, you worked a case for me for a young lady. There was no money. I paid the money, right? Didn't ask her for a nickel. Like, you don't have it? That's fine. Let's help, right? Get the situation set up. And then I go, okay, this is what I would like to provide you an opportunity to pass that forward. If you are capable, if you're inclined, that write me a check, like, to help the next family. Like, I paid for this one, no questions. If you ain't got it, don't worry about it. I don't worry about it.
Do you find that a lot of people then yearn to help pay it forward for the gift that they were given?
Absolutely. Like, I get a lot of, how can I help? Like, what can I do to help? I started another nonprofit in my son's name, the Brandon Thomas Jones Foundation. The house at our church that used to be where the pastor lived is now guys come and stay there. Like, and if you're coming to my house, you 3 meetings a week, and you're going to go to Bible study, and you're going to go to church. That's not a requirement for everywhere. You don't have to come to my place. Like, I'll help place you someplace else. But if you're coming here and I have any say so,
Agape up in Haverford County, I think, works a little bit like that.
Keith,
yeah, Pastor Keith works a little bit like that. I don't know. I think I enjoy the fact that, like you just said, we're kind of combining services now. You know, we had dinner this past week with George Littman. He was a retired district court judge, and one of the things that he was instrumental in was the 8505, 8507 under Health General, which allowed for inpatient drug treatment. And it used to be the 6-month program, right? So guys would really get sober. They would go to, 6 months is a good time to get sober. And then the legislature is like, oh, hey man, we're having a tough time. Let's cut it down to 90 days. Let's cut it down to 60 days. And so I was kind of, I don't want to say joking around about it with him, but like that was like his baby, right? He helped write the legislation. But I don't think when the legislature, and this is my problem with the General Assembly, is like they don't realize in that moment when you cut funding and you drop it from 6 months to 90 days or something like that, that the tidal wave of how that affects everything else, where like you think you save money there, but hey, by the way, you just spent a lot more money in the criminal justice system because the guys and gals that may have stayed sober there, that you shorten their treatment, because there is a difference between 90 days and 6 months. I don't need to tell you that, right?
100%.
One might say that the General Assembly's decision in that case was arbitrary and capricious.
Okay, so George Littman has a saying, and I saw where he says everything's arbitrary and
By the way,
capricious.
he doesn't.
So we have a bad
he doesn't
game.
believe us that that's like an ongoing thing.
No,
in the
we
office.
talked about that at dinner. Not only
He's like, that's not a thing.
Not only doesn't
And we're
believe
like,
it,
George,
he
like
then
literally
told me-
all the people around the table were like, it's a thing,
he
George.
then said, no, it's a legal standard. And I said, that's abuse of discretion. And he said, no, back when I was growing up, when I was coming up, it's arbitrary and capricious. I go, dude, I don't remember the last time I read that in an
It is
opinion.
1,000% a legal standard. It is.
Yeah, it is. But
It's just that you attributed it to George Littman, but it's like a real legal standard.
he said it. I took law and psychiatry. I took every class the man offered. And the funniest thing is he goes, oh man, I remember what grade you got. You got an A-. I was like, you couldn't give me an A. You couldn't give me a B. I got more A-. He also wore a green felt jacket, and every time he wrote on the chalkboard in chalk, because he still used chalk, he would wipe it off as he walked, and then he would get to the end and look back, and we'd all be looking at it, and he was like, where did it all go? And I'm like, you erased it. You're wearing a green felt eraser jacket. You're basically a human fucking eraser, and you just erased the whole board. George, I'm so sorry if you're listening.
He's not listening. You know,
That's what everyone told him. Like all these other judges we're having dinner with, and we're all talking about this, and they all know it's a joke. Like I talked about him on WBAL last week, and I'm talking about George Littman, and then the other judge is like, we didn't know he's your favorite judge, arbitrary and capricious, and he has no clue. He's like, I don't listen to the radio, I don't listen to anything, no idea, it's a legal standard, you guys are obnoxious, arbitrary and capricious.
Well, I know we're short on time.
That's the way he is, but that's why he's my favorite professor. He's like the only person I need someone as ridiculous as me. And to make it to you, you need somebody that can talk to you the way you need to be talked to, or else you're not going to fucking listen.
Correct. Like that's funny that you say that. Like my pastor and I have some conversations oftentimes because I still got a bit of a potty mouth. Like when I'm in a trap house, I'm talking to a drug addict that's dropping F-bombs every 5 minutes. Like I'm not going to pray with him oftentimes right there. Like I want to get his attention. I'm like, I hear you. Like I know what this feels like. Though I'm 27 years removed, some of these new guys are like, you don't know what we're going through right now. Like, okay, I understand it's different, but it's the same mind. Like the illness works the same way for the most part, for all of us. Some sort of self-centered fear is in there that starts the process rolling.
I want to do some quick hitters, and then do we want to go like a couple minutes over?
Yeah,
you got to
let's-
run?
No.
Or you guys got to run?
We got to shit happened in Mosby this
Shit
year.
happened in Mosby.
Can
Okay.
we skip Mosby? Yeah, we'll skip Mosby. I can do
No, I don't
Mosby
want to skip
tomorrow on the
Mosby.
Mosby file.
It takes 30 seconds. Her motions were fucking denied.
Really?
Her motions to dismiss were denied, and they were denied horribly. And then she went on television, had a press conference, and claimed that they weren't denied, which was the craziest press conference I may have ever heard.
And
in my
made a
life.
video stealing the Jesus Walks Kanye West sample from
Which has
the
promptly been
from
taken
the
down.
Addiction Harlem Choir, which then I might have made a bad joke that I got in trouble for saying because she went out and talked all that shit about how she's unbeatable and Jesus walks with me, and then she lost her motions. I might have made a joke saying, it sounds like Jesus didn't walk with you in court. And a couple people got offended by that.
Yeah.
And I said, no, I meant as an attorney, and I made a religious joke that I got in trouble for. But I'm not so sure how much Jesus, my favorite Jew, would have liked somebody like her going out there saying, I'm unbeatable. Like that's not exactly the most Christian thing one could say.
I like to be progress, not perfection.
There we
Like
go.
I'm human. I'm a human being, not a human doing. I'm going to blow it a lot of times. Like,
Yeah, but you're
even
saying
as a
it.
Christian
You're
guy, as a
saying it.
pastor,
Yeah.
right? I am probably one of the most liberal socially. Like, I believe everybody's entitled to know Jesus. I believe that. Like, gay or not, drug addict or like, none of that stuff really matters.
I dig it. I don't like when religion and politics mix, which is why I think you're not supposed to talk about the dinner, and why I pick on Mosby for using religion to pander to a constituency that deserves better. Frankly, not everyone deserves religion, just not.
I don't know.
in that
I
aspect.
don't understand as a white dude that lives in Harford County why
Who goes
the
in trap
leadership
houses.
continues to be the same leadership time and time again, telling the same promises over and over again, and it's like sometimes it's hard to find the hope.
What's the definition of insanity?
Over and over again, expecting a different result.
Well, when the people are
So
making
some-
decisions, the people making money off the fentanyl, then we'll get the same thing, and that's
So-
my opinion.
Quick hitters. All right. What is the worst place you've ever pulled somebody out from?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah, Baltimore City for sure. West Side, walking into an abando that the candles were burnt out going up the steps. A mom knew her son was in there, and it smelled like death. Is what I can say, and I got him out, took him to the hospital. He hung around for about a month, maybe, and then overdosed and died.
All right. What's your best story for recovery, excluding your own?
Oh, man. Watching this 23-year-old kid today open a bank account.
Wow. Cool.
Like, it's watching a mom get her kids back. Watching a guy rebuild. Listen, I gave a daughter up for adoption on the parking lot of the bar. It's the only commitment I stuck to when I got sober. Like, I went through periods where I'm not that guy anymore. I've earned the right to go see my daughter. Like, and my sponsor, my pastor, like, you haven't earned nothing. Like, you made a choice. Like, leave this girl alone. When she's ready, God willing, she'll reach out. And I think that's probably one of the best stories. Like, there was a family that was coming to church. Dad was a drug addict, went to meetings with him a lot. He had a daughter that was in high school, had mental health issues, ended up at Hartford Memorial Hospital in a psych ward. And I did a lot. I like working with teenagers a lot. Maybe if I can help them make a better decision along the way. But I went and spent some time. Like, I went up and visited her, had some conversation with her and the dad. Fast forward 10 years, she works at a tanning salon in Bel Air and tells this young lady, you should come check out my church one Sunday. Like, there's this dude there that's really cool. Like, it isn't like church like you would think. And the girl said, oh, yeah, what's his name? And she said, Tom Lantieri. And she said, oh, that's my birth father. She lived in
That's
Harford
crazy.
County. I didn't know it. Graduated from Steve Milton Wright. Had no idea. And it wasn't shortly after that, she called me on the phone. She said, I've heard my parents' side of the story my whole life. Would you tell me yours? And my sponsor, within the first year, said, if you're ever going to get your daughter, and at that point your son in your life, you better be ready to tell the truth. Like, because you got some stuff to answer for. So to sit across from my daughter and said, the basic reason the guy that adopted her went to school with, incredible dude. I have nothing but respect for that guy. Have said it to his face. He's been in my house for dinner since. I told her I did it so I could have more money in my pocket. And I knew at that point there was nothing I was going to give you that was going to be anything
That
good.
wasn't you.
Yeah. Now, so the weekend my son overdosed and died was the same weekend that my daughter's baby daddy, I put him in treatment. And she was in a middle nursing school. And she's like, I don't know where to go with my new baby. I said, sure, come to my house. So for the first 2 years of my grandson's life, he lived under my roof. And she finished nursing school. And there is no feeling in the world like when you're sound asleep and this little 2-year-old boy in a diaper comes up with a plastic sword and starts beating you on the head. Wake up, Bop. He calls me Bop. It was the first word he said.
That was
I'm
also
Bop.
me, by the way. Surprising.
I'm going to have nightmares. You're going to cause me to drink.
That was also me.
So many of Tom's most special memories have been ruined by your face on them.
That was me in a diaper. And,
Where's that
and by the
Tommy's
way,
tea?
it wasn't a sword.
Jeremy.
Tom didn't expect me to be here. I could hear him on the way back. He's like, "Oh, Jeremy's here."
It's all good.
You can look at me in my eyes while you tell this story.
It's
from
all
now on.
good. It's a
I've
laugh.
ruined every one of your
Never.
every one of your heartfelt stories. I keep looking you in the eye and then putting my face on whoever it was.
I'm going to have nightmares.
When we go camping, we're
I'm
gonna
in
share a
therapy
tent.
still. I'm good.
I
We're
take
all
your
right.
insurance. Don't worry,
What I promise you is I'll be praying for you. How about that?
thank brother. I believe you when you say that.
100%.
So, how do people find out more about recovery? Say somebody's out there listening to the show right now, and by the way, we didn't even get into lawyers, doctors, kind of professionals that have addiction related issues and
would
what
love to
goes
come
into
back.
that.
I'd love to have him and Bruce on together. I mean, there's
Yeah,
such,
I agree.
such
just
different
met-
people where the current is similar. It's
I just met Bruce 6 months ago. Have heard of him.
yeah.
Have sent people to him. Have sponsored guys that have gone through his program. Like, what an incredible dude.
You guys have such
Totally
a different
different.
way of saying similar things and different stories. I'd love to honestly have both of them on because you it's such a different
Yeah.
version of the same issue and something that you guys just know so much more about that we encounter on a limited basis.
Yeah, I think our basic difference is he's NA and I go to AA. Like, I think that's the basic. It's this, we're chasing the same spiritual solution to the same problem that so many people in this world need. Like, my senior pastor has this unique way of talking about the steps to people in church that have never had a drink or a drug, really. And they're like, yeah, this stuff, we all got junk. All of us got something that we're dealing with. If we're lucky, the brain doesn't take it to the 100th degree.
But I mean, what is one of the steps? It's like let go of the things that you can't control, or let go, or
that is all the steps, is learning in a nutshell. Like, we have no control. Like, I tell people, stick your hand up to your nose, right? And all that stuff behind your hand, that's the only thing you got control of. How you can control how you think about things and what goes on in your mind. That's it. I never promised people's lives are going to get better. Your wife might not come back. Your kids might want to still put a bullet in your head for the rest of it. Like, that might happen. But what I can tell you is your life can get better. You can get better. How you perceive and how you process can get better. And gratefully, the first word, the big book is we. Like, it ain't, I can't keep it. Like, I got to talk about it. There's some people like, I don't know what an alcoholic lawyer would look like in court, saying I'm an alcoholic too. I don't know what that.
We do.
Yeah, I know judges,
We do too.
right? Help them in a heartbeat.
But some of the, oh my God, we're gonna have to split this into multiple episodes. I mean, we're hitting on a lot of stuff that we also don't get to talk about.
yeah, I'd be grateful to come back. I really would. I don't know if anybody's going to listen.
Surprisingly,
I
I'll
have
tell
an
you,
opinion.
these are one of these topics where, and we went through with Bruce, and we'll go through it with you, where even if you're not involved in our world, this is the underbelly of
All of it.
And I think this is a good place to just end with Baltimore is I'm tired of being the joke. I'm tired of Baltimore broadcasting our crime and our drug use to everyone else across the world, thinking that's all we're known for.
Yeah.
And without hearing the reality of what that world actually is.
Right.
Getting to watch it on HBO without understanding what it actually is.
On that note, instead of doing a segment of I can't believe it's not Baltimore, it couldn't possibly be worse. This is Baltimore. Baltimore Police Department employee fired after a background check missed a gun conviction and being a significant person of interest in a homicide.
I have a huge bone to pick with this story.
So this person was the chief financial officer for the Baltimore City Police Department.
For
He had
9
been
days.
convicted for 9 days, which they don't mention in the article. Sounds like he was there for like years. They
What's
say
the cost investment to get him hired?
I'm not insignificant, I'm sure. And apparently, word on the street is that he was observed in an elevator by a homicide detective, by perhaps whom he may have been a person of interest in an investigation, and go, "Hey, we were looking for you," and that's how they uncovered the fact.
Yeah, I don't.
Fucking-
I hate this
No.
story. I think no, because that's not the truth. And I'm gonna eat this story up tomorrow. But everyone has come down on the side of fuck the Baltimore City Police Department. They hired this guy. They didn't know about his criminal background, and he's a person of interest. It's so easy to beat up this guy. But when you actually pick it apart, this is the biggest bullshit fucking story on the planet. This is a non-story. And I'm going to tell you why. Number one is before the guy gets hired, he gets a PBJ that he's expunged. Okay. So if you believe in the world of expungement,
You don't know that.
it is. It's in there. No, there are articles have come out that said he had the charge and he got it expunged. And if he got it expunged, maybe the police department shouldn't have hired him. But what is the point of expungement in this world if we're not going to actually believe in what it does, right? And you can say he's not a fiscal officer, but it wasn't a financial crime. He didn't get convicted of fraud or embezzlement, right? It was a gun crime. And some of the facts are out about it, even though they shouldn't be. And it's irresponsible to report on things that have been expunged.
Well, it's a crime to report on things that haven't.
It's
been
a
expunged.
misdemeanor,
So if I
right?
did, I'm sorry.
No, you didn't.
I didn't
It's already
realize
out.
that it
It's
had been
already out. At
expunged.
this point, it's already out. The second thing is that everyone's like, oh, he's a person of interest in homicide, and they put him in shackles, right? The guy has been suspected in the murder of his stepfather for years at this point because his stepfather was murdered at his place of business. He was supposedly the last person to see him, and he's had interactions with police. So, like, once again, this isn't the Baltimore City Police Department going, we didn't know where the fuck you were. Like, this guy's literally been in hiding in plain fucking sight.
If the case
And
was
then
a-
all of a sudden they're like, oh, you're a person of interest. This is what I hate about the Baltimore City Police Department is they demonize this guy for their own fuck up and put this guy's life back in the news. And now everybody knows way too much about him than they
Is
should.
that the police department or is that the media?
It's both. It's both because but for the police department, number one, if your case is expunged, you know this, Tom, they can see your case.
My reality, buddy, I can't. To my knowledge,
Yeah.
there's no expungements being done anymore. Like that's what I was told by 3 guys that have had.
No, they're doing
crazy
them. They're
stuff
doing them. That's like a way broader issue of like the credit union sucking all the information on like vacuum. So the whole world, like even if you expunge it, the
It's
world
not
still
gone
knows
everywhere.
about it, right?
Yeah.
What I just don't like about it is fine. Maybe even if the guy shouldn't have been hired, everything about the way that this story came out, from the way the police department dealt with it, from the way the media portrayed the initial story, from the way that politicians have jumped on the police department, I fucking hate all of it.
What is the gun offender registry?
So that is GORA. That was a city code that was established, and several other counties have it, including Prince George's County, that if you are found guilty of a gun offense, the judge can order you to register as a gun offender. Which
so
means
this
that if
guy
you
was
live
on the
within
gun
jurisdiction,
offender registry.
which means that he would have pled guilty to a gun crime, potentially gotten a PBJ, but that could have been expunged, and he's still on the registry.
How did he get a? So he got a PBJ. And
How
it
do
was
you
expunged.
have it removed? How do you have a conviction removed and remain on the registry?
That's
How
my
do
question.
you expunge from the no, it does make sense because how do you expunge from the gun offender registry?
well, if you don't have a conviction, you can't be on the registry.
That's not true.
And a PBJ in
100%
Maryland
That
is
is
not a
not
conviction.
first of
Well,
all,
you have to be ordered by the judge. If you're getting a probation before judgment,
everyone that
you have
gets a
to be ordered
PBJ,
by the judge to be on the registry. It's discretionary.
but it happens, and so they didn't take him off the registry. It's not that hard to figure out.
Wow. Got Jeremy all fired up. All right. So wrapping up the show, how do people find out information about where to get help? If any of our listeners want some help, where do they go? Is there a website? Is there
from you
What's so amazing
specifically.
right now is you would think in the information world that we live in right now, people still just don't know. Like I don't know what to do. Like
so what do you do?
internet, AA meetings, NA meetings, talk to your primary care doctor, the Brandon Thomas Jones Foundation, got a website. I'm
we
a
do?
one-man show. Yeah, I'm a one-man show. Oftentimes, like I'm the guy doing it. Kurt helps all the legal stuff. I have a pharmacist. I have a doctor. My best friend's wife does the books. Like I don't want to keep. I'm terrible at details. There is so much help out there almost on every street corner. Like, and what I like, the way it worked for me might not work for you. And that's okay. I want to help you be a part of your solution, like help you process. Like there's tons of people. They've started Peer Recovery, which I think is amazing, meeting people right in the hospital. Like if they're in a psych ward or
triage.
treatment, right? They're going right in and go, let me teach you about recovery and what that looks like. Find a therapist, like be honest. Like there is so much help out there.
I think that's one of the things that I think you probably experienced it too, is like people that you can tell are really going to make that breakthrough versus people that aren't, is the ones that are just brutally honest.
You can smell it.
You can just see that level of honesty and transparency is really kind of the difference between success and failure in my experience.
Yeah, there's a guy, there's actually two of them. I sponsor one. His name's Dan McGee. He's got a couple books out. Look him up on Facebook, whatever. He's got his second book just came out, Falling Towards Heaven. Like his first book is all about running a Bel Air kid, running a Baltimore City, living in the drug world. Like, and it was an amazing book. And I think he's actually joined you a couple times on cases of guys that we've had. Like he has worked in treatment. He's got a nonprofit. He's a real estate guy. He was a bail bondsman. Like he got out, like all the trouble he got in. He's like, I want to be a part of the solution somehow. Like figuring out how to connect kids to bail. And like, there's no more bail in Baltimore, so he had to find a different career. And there's this young man that I didn't think this kid had a chance. Some of them, I'm a little hard-headed. I'll outwill you any day of the week. Like, I ain't going to get hurt. I say I have 100% success rate in helping people. I have never drank. Like, that's my success rate. Like, part of helping people is what keeps me. I don't ever want to get that bad again.
Yeah.
But this young man, when I first met him, his father introduced me, like, will you come talk to my son? And I met him at his house, and he thought I was gay. Like, he didn't understand why somebody would come offer to help him for no reason. Like, and it took 3 stints in treatment. The last treatment, he was with Bruce. Bruce helped him really the final step, and ended up with 6 recovery houses. He opened a part owner of a treatment center in Dundalk. Opened a gym in the middle of a global pandemic, the Iron Cathedral, he calls it. And he had to have knee surgery, blew out his knee. 2 months later, he was gone.
Fuck.
Overdose. I believe it was the first. I think he was gigging and gagging, like a little bit. I think it was the first time he did dope, did fentanyl, and I viewed the body before they took him, and the needle wasn't empty. Like it didn't even all get in. And
That's fentanyl.
yeah, that's the second one I've seen that where I've gone to try to Narcan. They were done.
So
Yeah, sorry to end that on a global.
no, we're going to end it on a good note. So I want to talk about a comment that we have here from a listener or viewer. Tom saved my life when I gave 0 fucks about everyone and everything. Within 1 minute of talking to Tom, a complete stranger that I didn't know, I broke down crying and agreed to get help and live at the Brandon House. I witnessed the other people that Tom served and inspired to this day. Great guy. Very blessed to have met Tom.
You're a good dude, man.
Not one more needs to die. I believe that in my heart. That's what keeps me going. Not one more. I'll keep doing it. Everybody's like, "When are you going to retire? I'm never going to retire." You know, drug addiction goes
You're
away.
going to have like a walker. You're going to be like climbing into a vacant with a walker.
I'll be hopping up on the judge's table. Come on, he doesn't need jail. He needs treatment. He needs a doctor. Sometimes he needs. I don't have all the answers. I don't even imagine. I try not. Like I don't have all the answers. I got a lot of good people around me.
Do you think it's possible, Tom, that you could help Jeremy with his addiction that listener Peter has pointed out on the Facebook page?
I know what did he write? Masturbation. Like I can only imagine.
'Cause we're all here today.
I
up
knew
on
it
the
was going to
screen.
come
It's
full
up on the
circle.
screen, brother.
What did he write?
You're addicted to talking about yourself or hearing your own voice.
Oh, I'm glad I guess masturbation first. I guess that is masturbatory. I'm glad that we could end with me finishing.
I mean, wasn't that the goal?
Just keep coming back, bro.
I always come first.
And on that note,
All right. Guys, if you need help with addiction or recovery services, check out anything. AA website, they list meetings. NA's website, they list meetings, dates, times, and locations. You can find the Brandon Thomas Jones Foundation online. Check them out. Call me if you need some help. I'll hook you up with Tom, hook you up with Bruce, any of the other guys that we know in the recovery industry. In the meantime, till the next time, sit back, relax, pour yourself a drink. Until the next episode of Lawyers on the Rocks.